大家好，欢迎回来，我是艾琳。Today I wanted to talk to you guys about something I'm super excited about, which is that I finished the first textbook of the Integrated Chinese series. If you're new to my channel, welcome to the Multilingual Mind, where my goal is to share with you guys tips and tricks to learning and maintaining languages. Lately, I've been sharing my journey of studying Mandarin Chinese starting from scratch, and my goal is to share with you guys the resources that I've been loving and using, and also to share with you the highs and the lows. The first thing that I'll talk to you guys about is which resources that I actually use from the Chengsui website. So the first thing that I used is obviously the textbook, and then I also have the character workbook as well as the regular workbook. And I kept the pages blank in here and I just worked out of a notebook because I find sometimes if I have a lapse in studying for a little while, I like to go back and review the textbook. The only other resources that I used were the downloadable audio files, which you can find on the Chengsui website. After you have purchased the books, there will be a code, which is just a word from a certain page of the textbook or workbook, and then they will allow you to download those audio files for free, which I found to be really nice. Also, I found some of the videos on YouTube. So there are a couple of those available, but I didn't really heavily rely on them. It was just something fun that I watched maybe one time after having finished the entire lesson. It's also important to mention that I did not have access to the answer key, so the answers that I put in, I felt honestly pretty confident about. I have studied other languages before in the past, and yes, they're not really similar to Chinese in any way, but I thought that the format and the level of the language were easy enough to the point where I didn't feel shaky about my answers, and I felt that I can keep continuing onward. That being said, now that I'm going to go into the second textbook, I am going to work more with a tutor on italki, just to be able to have them correct my answers from things that I'm not very sure about. I would say the biggest example of this would probably be the writing exercises in the workbook. So, how long did it take? Well, I purchased my books in late October of 2020, and I really got a super fast head start. And then after a little while of going back, I would say probably when I went back to in-person teaching is when I could no longer study at the rate that I was. And that is why it has taken me a little bit longer to finish. I prepared a written summary in Chinese of my experience, and I've decided that I'm going to try to read it out loud for you guys. Here is the original copy, which I gave to my italki tutor, and you can see the marks on there for the places where I had to be corrected. I did try to write everything I could, and I was able to, surprisingly, I felt I was able to write a couple of paragraphs on my own, which was probably the most rewarding experience of just my time in studying Chinese, knowing that I can express my own thoughts and it goes beyond just a sentence or two.
我学习中文2年了。2020年10月18号，我买了我的中文课本，叫《中文听说读写》。当我开始学习这本书的时候，我很高兴。我爱这本书，因为我看语法、生词和课文的时候，我都很容易懂。因为每节课没有太多的生词，所以我可以看很快。我也喜欢录音，因为有一个很快的和有一个很慢的录音。课文我也可以看。这本书也很漂亮，因为有很多照片，我很喜欢。
All right, now we'll talk a little bit about the resources that I used.
这些书帮我看懂了另外4本 Mandarin Companion 的书。我平常在家学习，我常常用 Scritter 练习写汉字。我每天都跟多邻国 练习练习。我的朋友都不学习中文，所以我有时候用 Tandem 跟几个人聊天。我也常常听几个播客。我最经常听的播客是 Chill Chat 和 Chinese Pod Beginner。这些播客让我练习听中文很容易。我觉得学中文很有意思。我跟一个人说中文的时候，我很开心。我生日的时候，我的男朋友给了我第2本中文听说读写。我想要在大学学习中文，可是那些课太贵了。我会自己学习，我要用 iTalki 找一个老师帮我，或者 Tandem。我马上开始学习我的新课本。
All right, now I want to share with you guys some lessons that I've learned over the course of the last almost 2 years here with studying Chinese. And the first thing is that I regretted not having done more. And I think this is just a part of life. I went back to teaching in person and I was very overwhelmed most of the year. And sometimes all I could handle was just doing a Duolingo lesson once a day, which I'm happy to say that is the one thing that I've kept up with every single day almost since the start of this. So I think I'm up to like almost a 700 days streak now. So props to Duolingo, and I think that the Duolingo has really helped me to learn new vocabulary and to bind it with what I've already learned in integrated Chinese. So the two of those are a fantastic combination. The other thing I would say is to not be intimidated to start again after a study lapse. The important thing is to just get right back on the horse and to realize that it's never going to be perfect. You're never going to have a study schedule that's always every single day. You're going to have a study lapse at some point, whether you're just too busy or maybe you just had a little bit of burnout and then you need to, at some point, get back to what you wanted to do, right? One of the things I learned is that it's better to be a couple of weeks late than to be several months late. So don't let it get to the point where you just are procrastinating to start again. Take small steps to get back to the study plan that you'd like to have. I think one of the most important things here with like a study lapse issue is that if you write out a plan to get back on track on a calendar and you write down a little bit of something or a goal that you want to hit, that I think is probably the most helpful thing that you can do for yourself. Just write down a small goal every day and don't have it be too large. Something that you can do in 10 to 20 minutes even a day, and that's going to keep you on track. That's kind of the realization I had, is that I would have finished this book a lot earlier if I had just written down to do, hey, exercises A and B today and exercises C and D tomorrow. But I didn't keep up with that, and that's one thing that I'll try to do now in the future. Another thing that I learned is to not always go back to the beginning after a study lapse, because yeah, you can review a little bit, but don't push yourself all the way back to the beginning of the book. Start the next chapter and then review a little bit each day, and you'll get caught up along the way, unless it's been a really long study lapse. Otherwise, I think that it's totally fine to just pick up where you left off, and you'll be able to fill in the gaps. Something I feel really accomplished with is that I've been able to read books in Chinese. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts. I've been using Duolingo, talking with people on Tandem and iTalki. And all of these things together, using all of these resources, has really helped me to strengthen the level of Chinese that I feel like I now have with Integrated Chinese 1. When you're at the beginning level, guys, like, all of the podcasts and all of the textbooks and all of the apps are going to be teaching you generally the same thing with one or two words, maybe a little bit different here or there. And really all it's doing, if you're using another source like Duolingo, for example, is it's pre-teaching me the vocabulary that I'm going to see a little bit later on. And the proof is in the pudding. If you look at, for example, I have here with me my second level textbook, and I started flipping through all of the vocabulary pages for the new vocabulary that I'm going to be learning. And I'm happy to say that I actually know a decent chunk of the new vocabulary that's in here, not from Integrated Chinese 1 textbook, but rather from Duolingo or other sources that I've been using. So utilize your other resources and it'll eventually all piece together really fast, rather than feeling like every new lesson, every single word is a new word for you. And it's just like an easy and fun way to do that. I also recommend using Skritter a lot because I think that it helps to kind of break the ice with the characters in the next unit.
你呢？你用哪本书学中文？要是你用中文听说读写，你觉得怎么样？
Let me know in the comments.
要是你喜欢这个录像
Make sure you subscribe to see more videos about my journey on learning Chinese. 下次见，拜拜。